Their wedding rings were props. Their vows were scripted. Their love, non-existent. Hollywood's most celebrated Golden Age marriages, the ones that made America swoon and filled fan magazines for decades, were elaborate productions scripted, directed, and enforced by studio executives who viewed their stars not as humans with hearts, but as assets with box office potential. Behind those perfect wedding photos and romantic premiere appearances lurked Hollywood's darkest secret. These marriages were completely fake, designed to hide secrets, manufacture publicity, and imprison stars in gilded cages of lies. Today, we tear apart the biggest romantic lie Hollywood ever sold and expose the broken lives left bleeding behind the silver screen. This isn't just another celebrity expose. What will shock you isn't just that these marriages were fake. It's the ruthless machine that created them and the psychological torture they inflicted on stars trapped inside them. Gay actors forced to marry studio-selected partners. Actresses paired with leading men to silence whispers about their private lives. Stars pushed together to generate publicity, then bound by contracts that made escape impossible, all while their real lovers remained hidden, forbidden, erased from history. Before we rip off Hollywood's wedding veil, here are 5 shocking facts about these counterfeit marriages. MGM maintained a secret compatibility department staffed by psychologists who matched stars based on marketability, not chemistry. Contract marriages included specific clauses dictating how often couples needed to be photographed together. Warner Brothers once staged an elaborate fake honeymoon, while both newlyweds were secretly seeing other people. One studio executive was recorded saying, "Marriage is just another costume our actors wear." A major Hollywood pregnancy was borrowed from a studio secretary to create the illusion of marital bliss for a completely fabricated couple. Now let's expose the most heartbreaking relationship frauds in Hollywood history. Number 1. Rock Hudson and Phyllis Gates. The perfect cover story. November 9th, 1955. America's most eligible bachelor finally found love. Rock Hudson married his agent's secretary, Phyllis Gates, in a surprise ceremony that set hearts aflutter nationwide. Fan magazines exploded with joy. The wedding photos showed a handsome couple beaming with happiness. "I've never been happier in my life," Hudson told reporters. 3 years later, they divorced quietly. A brief union, but not unusual by Hollywood standards. The reality? Every moment, from their chance meeting to their emotional wedding vows, was an elaborate production orchestrated by Hudson's agent Henry Wilson to silence growing whispers about the actor's homosexuality. "It was like being cast in a movie nobody would ever see," Gates later wrote in her memoir, "except we had to live it every day." Hudson commanded millions at the box office with his rugged good looks and masculine charm in films like Magnificent Obsession. He was also gay at a time when this fact would have instantly destroyed his career. By mid-1955, the whispers were growing dangerous. Confidential magazine was preparing an expose. Universal executives were panicking. Enter Henry Wilson, Hudson's agent and a powerful Hollywood fixer with his own secrets to protect. Wilson didn't suggest a marriage, he engineered one with military precision. His secretary, Phyllis Gates, became the unwitting bride. Wilson told her Hudson had genuine feelings for her, while simultaneously assuring Hudson that Gates understood the arrangement's true purpose. Neither was given the full script. "I was the last to know why I was getting married," Gates later confided to a friend. The wedding wasn't planned by the couple, but by Universal's publicity department. They selected the venue, created the guest list, and positioned photographers for maximum media coverage. Even the honeymoon was routed through locations chosen for publicity value, not privacy. Behind closed doors, reality looked nothing like the photographs. Hudson and Gates maintained separate bedrooms from the beginning. Hudson continued his private relationships with men through elaborate security measures and code systems developed by trusted friends. Gates gradually realized she'd been cast in a role without her consent. "I was living with a stranger who was pretending to be my husband," she wrote. "Some nights I'd hear him on the phone whispering to someone, 'I wasn't just lonely, I was erased.'" When Confidential magazine eventually backed off and Hudson's career seemed secure enough to weather minor scandals, Wilson decided the marriage had served its purpose. Gates was offered a settlement to exit quietly, with studio lawyers drafting an agreement that included lifelong confidentiality clauses. The human wreckage was incalculable. Hudson later told close friends that the years of his sham marriage were his darkest, forcing him to compartmentalize his authentic self while maintaining an exhausting facade. Gates spent decades processing the betrayal of being unwittingly cast in a role she never agreed to play. Hudson continued living a divided life until his death from AIDS-related complications in 1985. In his final days, friends reported he expressed one profound regret: "I never got to live one day as myself in the light." Number 2, Barbara Stanwyck and Robert Taylor. Contractual convenience. "We're getting married next month," Barbara Stanwyck flatly informed Robert Taylor over lunch at the MGM commissary in early 1939. Taylor nearly choked on his coffee. "Excuse me?" Stanwyck slid a contract across the table. Page 17, paragraph 4. "The studios decided we're in love." When Stanwyck and Taylor married later that year, fan magazines called it the union of Hollywood's most beautiful couple. Both were at career peaks. She, the tough-talking leading lady of Stella Dallas, he the handsome hero of Waterloo Bridge. Their wedding made front-page news, with MGM's publicity department distributing romantic photos nationwide. The marriage lasted 12 years before ending in divorce, seemingly successful by Hollywood standards. But recently uncovered studio documents reveal a different story. Their entire relationship was an MGM business transaction designed to solve public relations problems for both stars. The Stanwyck-Taylor arrangement was our most successful public relations marriage, Louis B. Mayer reportedly boasted to studio executives. A blueprint for how these things should work. The truth behind this celebrated union was stunningly pragmatic. MGM faced PR challenges with both stars. Stanwyck, though contracted to other studios, frequently worked at MGM and faced persistent rumors about her close relationships with women, particularly writer Joe Trent. Taylor, meanwhile, generated gossip about his wild partying and affairs with both women and, occasionally, men. The solution, crafted in MGM's executive offices, was to pair them in a relationship of mutual convenience that would benefit their careers while quashing inconvenient rumors. Studio memos explicitly outline the arrangement's business purposes. Pairing Taylor-Stanwyck addresses ongoing publicity vulnerabilities for both parties while creating marketable couple for upcoming joint projects. Unlike many studio-arranged marriages, both participants entered this arrangement with full knowledge and consent. They weren't romantically involved, but maintained a friendship and professional respect that made the public performance believable. MGM's publicity department created their entire romance narrative from scratch. They fabricated a first meeting story, they had actually known each other for years, staged dating photographs, and planted items in gossip columns tracking their blossoming love. The wedding itself was a masterpiece of Hollywood production, a seemingly intimate ceremony attended by more publicity staff than actual guests. Behind the scenes, the arrangement functioned with business-like precision. Recently revealed contracts show both stars received substantial bonuses for maintaining the marriage, with specific requirements for public appearances and regular photo opportunities. The agreement even included provisions for handling questions about children. They would express desire but cite busy careers as the reason for delaying parenthood. Their actual living arrangement was pragmatic and separate. They maintained individual residences where they lived their authentic lives while keeping a shared home primarily for entertaining and publicity photographs. Studio-friendly journalists were given tours of this home, which MGM's design department had carefully crafted to appear lived-in and intimate. The cups in the sink were placed there by a set decorator, a former MGM publicity agent later revealed. The casual photos of them at breakfast were shot on a soundstage. What makes this case particularly fascinating is how two strong-willed stars turned a studio-mandated arrangement into something that served their own purposes. Stanwyck and Taylor essentially took control of their fake marriage, establishing boundaries that protected their private lives while fulfilling their contractual obligations. Barbara ran that marriage like a business partnership, recalled a friend of Taylor's. They had quarterly meetings to discuss appearances, photo ops, and interview talking points. It was probably the most honest marriage in Hollywood because there were no illusions about what it was. When they divorced in 1951, MGM crafted the narrative again, positioning the split as amicable and mature, preserving both stars' public images while freeing them from an arrangement that had served its purpose. After the divorce, Stanwyck never remarried, living a private life that included close relationships with women that were carefully kept from public view. Taylor married actress Ursula Tease and maintained the more conventional family life that MGM had always thought better suited his image. Their story reveals how sometimes, within the oppressive studio system, savvy stars could turn even manufactured marriages to their advantage, playing a role in public while protecting the truth of who they really were behind closed doors. Number 3, Judy Garland and Vincente Minnelli, the studio-created family. She collapsed on set the morning after her wedding night. Makeup artists worked frantically to cover the dark circles under her eyes while she vomited into a bucket between takes. This wasn't wedding night exhaustion, it was withdrawal. MGM had temporarily suspended Judy Garland's medication regimen to ensure she appeared sober at her wedding to director Vincente Minnelli. According to an unnamed MGM executive who was present that day, Louis B. Mayer allegedly ordered, "Get her back on the pills by noon, but half dose until the honeymoon photo shoot. We need her eyes clear." When Garland married Minnelli in 1945, it looked like a perfect Hollywood match. The star of The Wizard of Oz, finding love with the visionary director of Meet Me in St. Louis. Their daughter, Liza, would become a star herself, seemingly validating their union. Behind this apparent success story lay one of MGM's most callous human experiments, a marriage created to serve multiple studio agendas while disregarding the devastating personal consequences. The Garland-Minnelli arrangement was designed to solve two problems with one contract. A former MGM executive later admitted it nearly destroyed them both. By 1945, MGM faced serious problems with both stars. Garland, despite her enormous talent, was increasingly unstable, struggling with studio-supplied amphetamines and barbiturates, experiencing mood swings, and forming intense attachments the studio deemed problematic. Minnelli was brilliant but dangerous in different ways. His sexuality raised eyebrows in conservative post-war America. Though his visual style was revolutionizing MGM musicals, his personal life threatened to become a liability. Louis B. Mayer saw an opportunity to solve both problems with a single solution. Studio documents reveal the cold calculation. Marriage addresses Garland instability issues while normalizing Minnelli, creates bankable family unit with significant publicity value. Their wedding day perfectly captured the grotesque reality. While cameras captured their joyful ceremony, Garland was experiencing such severe withdrawal symptoms that she required injections between photo sessions. Minnelli, meanwhile, had been prevented from seeing or speaking to his actual romantic partner for 2 weeks leading up to the ceremony. Judy was shaking so badly she could hardly stand, recalled a makeup artist present that day. Vincente looked like he was attending his own funeral. Their honeymoon lasted just 4 days. Garland was needed back on set. Behind the glamorous facade, the situation quickly unraveled. Though they developed a friendship, Garland and Minnelli were fundamentally incompatible as romantic partners. Her psychological issues intensified while Minnelli felt trapped in a relationship that suffocated his identity. The birth of their daughter Liza in 1946 briefly stabilized things. Both parents genuinely loved their child, giving them a real connection amid the manufactured marriage. What fans never saw, Garland's suicide attempts growing more frequent, Minnelli conducting relationships with men through elaborate secrecy, and their shared home becoming a psychological battlefield. The arrangement collapsed in 1951 when even MGM could no longer maintain the fiction. The official divorce cited artistic differences rather than acknowledging the fundamental lie at the marriage's core. Decades later, Minnelli made a rare candid comment about the arrangement. "They gave us everything: beautiful homes, beautiful pictures, beautiful publicity. Everything except the right to be who we were." Number 4. Cesar Romero and the Phantom Wives Who Never Existed. Tell me about your first wife, Cesar. The reporter's question hung in the air at the Batman press junket in 1966. Cesar Romero, playing the cackling Joker in the hit television series, maintained his debonair smile. Without missing a beat, he launched into charming anecdotes about Elena, their Mexican wedding, their honeymoon in Acapulco, their amicable parting. The story was perfect, detailed, emotional, and completely fabricated. Elena never existed. Neither did his second wife, Carmela, or his third wife, Luisa. For decades, the public believed Romero had been married multiple times. In reality, he never married anyone at all. Welcome to Hollywood's most surreal relationship deception. Marriages invented entirely inside publicists' imaginations, existing only in fan magazine profiles and press packets. Romero holds the distinction of having the most fictional wives in Hollywood history. A former 20th Century Fox publicist later revealed, "We created at least 3 complete marriages for him, none of which involved actual ceremonies, legal documentation, or real women." As one of Hollywood's most popular Latin lovers, from the 1930s through the 1960s, 1940s, Romero built his career on sophisticated charm and immaculate style. He was also gay, a fact known within industry circles but concealed from the public through elaborate fictional heterosexual romances. Rather than forcing Romero into an actual arranged marriage like other stars, Fox created something more innovative, a series of private marriages that had supposedly occurred away from public view. These fictional relationships followed a consistent pattern. Romero had secretly married while on location filming, lived briefly with his bride, then quietly divorced when the relationship didn't work out. Most shockingly, Fox maintained a file of doctored wedding photos showing Romero with various women at fabricated ceremonies. These images were selectively shown to trusted reporters to reinforce the narrative without being published directly, as they couldn't withstand public scrutiny. Romero himself became an accomplished performer in maintaining these fictions. Before major interviews, he would study briefing documents prepared by the publicity department, memorizing specific details about marriages that never happened. In a rare unguarded moment late in life, Romero reportedly told a friend, "The marriages that never happened extended my career by 40 years. The only downside was having to remember details about weddings I never attended and women I never met." Perhaps most ironically, Romero's most famous role, the maniacally laughing Joker, perfectly embodied his relationship with Hollywood's publicity machine. Both were masters of elaborate deception, creating illusions so convincing that audiences never suspected the truth hidden behind the performing smile. Number 5. Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy, the greatest love story never told. Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy's legendary romance stands as Hollywood's greatest love story, a passionate 26-year relationship that endured despite Tracy's refusal to divorce his estranged wife. Their dedication to each other, despite impossible circumstances, has been celebrated in books, documentaries, and countless retrospectives as the epitome of enduring love. There's just one problem. The relationship, as the public understood it, was largely a studio-manufactured fiction hiding a far more complex truth. What everyone thinks they know about Tracy and Hepburn is Hollywood's most successful cover story, revealed a former MGM publicity executive. The reality was something no one was ready to accept. The true nature of Hepburn and Tracy's relationship wasn't what MGM wanted hidden. It was who else they were involved with that required elaborate concealment. By the early 1940s, both stars faced career-threatening rumors. Tracy's alcoholism and violent behavior had become difficult to hide, while his occasional relationships with men threatened his masculine image. Hepburn, after being labeled box office poison, was rebuilding her career while navigating her own complex personal life that included relationships with women, most notably with journalist Laura Harding. MGM's solution was brilliant. Pair them publicly, creating a relationship narrative so compelling it would overshadow all inconvenient truths about either star. Their first film together, Woman of the Year, 1942, provided the perfect launch for this manufactured romance. Studio publicists planted stories about instant chemistry, working closely with friendly columnists to establish their secret relationship in the public imagination. The narrative was carefully crafted. Their love was genuine, but complicated by Tracy's Catholic refusal to divorce his wife, Louise. This manufactured story served multiple purposes. It explained why they weren't seen at public events together. It created a tragic romantic narrative that enhanced both their images. Most importantly, it provided cover for their actual private lives. What definitively shatters the romantic myth? A recently discovered letter from Hepburn to a close friend in 1942, written just as MGM was launching the great romance narrative. The studio has decided Tracy and I are madly in love. It would be funny if it weren't so convenient for all concerned. Spencer finds it particularly amusing since he hasn't spent a night away from his apartment in months. I've explained to Louis B. Mayer that I'm happy to play along, but I won't disrupt my household to maintain their fiction. The household she referred to included Harding, who lived nearby and was part of her daily life for decades. The reality? Tracy and Hepburn were indeed close, but as friends and occasional lovers in a relationship far more complex and open than the devoted couple of Hollywood legend. Tracy maintained relationships with several men, including a long-term arrangement with a young actor the studio kept under contract primarily to keep him available to Tracy. MGM's publicity department constructed elaborate systems to maintain the fictional narrative. They created a separate gossip pipeline exclusively for Tracy Hepburn items, carefully controlling which reporters received which scoops. about their relationship. They even created false narratives about Tracy living at Hepburn's house during his final years. This case reveals the studio system's most sophisticated deception technique, not simply hiding the truth, but replacing it with a narrative so compelling that it continues to overshadow reality decades after the studio system itself has disappeared. Number 6, William Haynes, the star who refused to play along. Not every Golden Age star submitted to the studio's romantic fiction. In 1933, MGM's top box office draw made an unprecedented choice when presented with an ultimatum: enter a studio-arranged marriage or lose everything. William Haynes looked Louis B. Mayer in the eye and said 7 words that ended his career: "I won't fake a marriage. Fire me." Haynes' defiance provides the essential counterpoint to our other stories, revealing what happened to stars who refused to participate in manufactured marriages and the steep price paid for authentic living in Golden Age Hollywood. As MGM's #1 male star from 1928 to 1932, Haynes had everything: looks, charm, incredible popularity, and a string of hit films that made millions. He also had something else: a genuine, loving relationship with Jimmy Shields, his partner since 1926. Haynes never pretended to be anything other than who he was within the industry. Though not publicly out, he made no particular effort to hide his relationship with Shields among colleagues. The couple lived together openly, attended industry functions as a pair, and were known as inseparable. MGM initially tolerated this arrangement as long as Haynes maintained public discretion and box office success. The studio's attitude changed dramatically in 1933 when Haynes was arrested in a YMCA incident that threatened to become public. Though charges were dropped, the close call terrified studio executives. Louis B. Mayer summoned Haynes to his office and issued a direct ultimatum: enter a lavender marriage with a woman selected by the studio, or be terminated immediately. Mayer had already selected the bride, a young contract player who understood the arrangement and would benefit from the association with a major star. The meeting that followed has been recounted by multiple MGM employees who overheard the confrontation. Haynes refused, not just firmly but defiantly, telling Mayer, "I won't give up Jimmy for a fake marriage. We've been together 7 years. That's longer than most Hollywood marriages last." Mayer's response was equally direct: "You'll never work in pictures again." He was right. Despite being MGM's top male box office draw, Haynes was immediately fired. His name was removed from upcoming projects, his dressing room was cleared out the same day, and an internal memo instructed publicity staff to cease all promotion of his final film. The blacklisting was industry-wide and devastatingly effective. No major studio would touch him. His acting career was over at age 33. What makes Haynes' story remarkable isn't just his refusal, but what came after. Unlike many stars destroyed by the studio system, Haynes built a successful second life. With Shields by his side, he established an interior design business that became wildly successful, eventually counting among his clients many of the studio executives and stars who couldn't publicly associate with him in film. Most importantly, Haynes and Shields remained together for 47 years until Haynes' death in 1973, a relationship that outlasted virtually every studio-manufactured marriage of their era. As former MGM star Joan Crawford later observed, "Billy was the only one of us who had the courage to tell the studio to go to hell and live his life on his own terms. And look what happened. They took away his career, but they couldn't touch his happiness." Haynes' story stands as the essential counterpoint to the manufactured marriages that defined Golden Age Hollywood, revealing both the steep price of authenticity and the possibility of finding happiness beyond the studio system's suffocating control. The bitter truth behind the Golden Age: these stars didn't fall in love, they fell on swords. For contracts, for image, for the fantasy we paid to believe. Next time you watch a classic Hollywood film, look closely at those passionate embraces and romantic gazes. Behind many of them stood studio executives with contracts, publicity departments with cameras, and stars silently screaming to be free of the perfect loves that existed only in America's imagination. They sold us a fantasy about love while living a nightmare of control, coercion, and lies.